Hello and welcome to Dash 28 Live. I'm your host, Mike Adkins, and I'd like to welcome everyone joining us as part of Mantic's Virtual Open Day for this special sneak peek at what we can expect to see in an upcoming campaign supplement for Kings of War. For those of you joining us for the first time, if you're not familiar with us, Dash 28 is a resource for the Kings of War community. We publish articles on our website, dash28.org, on all manner of topics from fiction to tactical advice to hobby tips and things like that. If you haven't checked us out before, definitely go take a look at dash28.org. And also here on our YouTube channel, we've been doing live streamed Universal Battle reports from the massive 140-person Call to Arms global tournament going on right now. And today we are bringing you another one of those Universal Battle live stream battle reports with some extra fun spice thrown in. Here with me on the stream, we have our regular contributors, Dan Miner, Michael Percy, Elliot Morrish, and Britton Williams. And we also have special guest, Matt from the Rules Committee, who's here to let us in on, give us a little special peek behind the curtain on some fun stuff coming up in an upcoming supplement that's going to add some interesting rules, optional rules for us to use to bring some more magic into the game. So, Matt, could you give us like the 30-second elevator pitch version of like what are we going to look at here today? What's going on?
Yeah, so essentially we it's really well, it's not. So yeah, nothing to worry about in that regard, I don't think. So essentially, what I've been asked to do by Mantic is to write a expansion for the game, which is heavily based around magic. So you're going to see lots of extra spells, different scenarios, and different. It's just a different way to play the game, really. It's going to be more geared towards a more beer and pretzels experience than anything that's like hyper competitive. And there's going to be rules in the book for games over 3,000 points, where I think this will really come into its own. But obviously, with the restrictions of playing on Universal Battle, that's not really going to be, doable. So we'll show you today a glimpse of what you can expect in I think you guys are playing 2,300 points, if I'm correct.
Yeah.
So this will give you an insight into what you can expect from the game in that regard.
Great. All right, so without further ado, we will start going through the list that these guys are taking, and as we get to the new and interesting stuff that they've taken from the supplement, we can talk about those a little bit, and then after that, we'll get into talking about the game and how the scenario changes how the supplement changes the scenarios that we're used to and the terrain and all that good stuff. So let me first bring up Dan's list, and he can talk us through what he's taking. All right, Dan.
All right. Well, I've got, so I'm starting with, nice cheap unit strengths and board control with the 2 units, regiments of lower abyssals. I've got 2 regiments of succubi. One of the units has a new item, the magic mirror. 2 units of gargoyles, because their flying chaff is always fun. 2 Moloch hammer units. One of them has a new item, Hourglass of Cronius. An Abyssal Horseman unit with the obligatory Potion of the Caterpillar. 2 Abyssal Fiends. A Seductress who has a new spell called Scorched Earth. And an item that, well, I can't remember what the name of that item is again. Just a second.
It's the Wand of the Damned.
The Wand of Damnation, or Wand of the Damned. And then I've got 2 Abyssal Warlocks, both with Drain Life.
Okay, so let's go back and talk about some of that new stuff. So you've got an item called Wand of the Damned. It's a new heroic artifact. Matt, can you tell us a little bit about what this item does?
Yeah, so I've really tried with the new magic artifacts in this book to make them all about spellcasting and giving you different things to do with the magic. As obviously at the moment, you just cast the 1 spell per turn. But I wanted there to be some sort of risk reward involved when you do that. So there are around 9 items which can be taken in any of the planes, and this is one of them. And so, yeah, as it says on the screen here, you can give it to a spellcaster with level 1 or more. And immediately after casting a spell, you can cast the same spell again, but you've got to choose a different target. And after resolving that second casting of the spell, your unit becomes disordered. So you've got to make a choice, really, as to whether you want to cast the spell twice this turn and not cast anything at all next turn, or whether you want to just take it one turn at a time. But it gives you that option to do so. So there's an element of risk reward there because, say you want to Bane Chant 2 different units or something in a turn. Yeah, great. You might do that, but then you might be left cursing your luck that you can't get it off next turn. You might need it, or who knows? But the option's there, and you can really kind of it gives you a tactical option to think about.
Yeah, it's great for a turn 6 Hail Mary.
Sure.
And there's also
unless you use turn 5.
True. So there's another spell called Scorched Earth. What's this do?
So the idea behind this one is that you kind of set the ground in front of you on fire. Well, that's how I imagine it in my head anyway. And you make the enemy run across hot coals as they're coming towards you. So as it says here, if a hit is successfully scored during the following turn, any charges made by this unit will be considered hindered. And just to make sure you are hindered, I've made it Strip, Strider, and Pathfinder as well. So screw you, Giant.
My Berserker Brox, I'm not looking forward to that.
No, they shouldn't be. The other thing you'll notice here, and this is where we may as well touch on spellcaster levels right now, because you can see on the right-hand side of this table that it says spellcaster level 1, spellcaster level 2, spellcaster level 3, and you'll notice that there's a different, and I have formatted this wrong because it should be the 2, the 3, and the 3 in brackets rather than the points value. But the 2 is the N value for spellcaster level 1, and the 3 is the N value for spellcaster level 2. So one of the things we found in version 2 of the game was that, say you had a goblin or halfling wizard who costs 45 points, you could throw Alchemist Curse, Blood Boil, all the nasty spells on that wizard, but the elf, who's supposed to be the great spellcaster, could only take the same number of dice and pay the same number of points for it. So what we've done is we've said, if you've got, you can basically buy a spell up to your spellcaster level. So the elf, who is spellcaster level 2, would be able to choose the level 1 or the level 2 version of this spell and make sure it's really reliable. And the same goes for damage spells as well. You get more dice. So you've got the option there as to how far you go with it, the higher your wizard level is. Whereas a goblin who's level 1, or any of the other level 1s, like a necromancer or the cheap guys like that, will be stuck buying the spell at level 1. So
okay.
It was just kind of, this will go beyond the campaign book as well. So in future Clash of Kings supplements, when we do introduce new spells, they will follow this. And in fact, since the start of version 3, this has all been working in the background because we've got a table like this for every spell in the game. Where there's some subtle tweaks here and there to Living Legends and things like that, like Morgoth, who's obviously got the more Drain Life. But yes, essentially the way that you buy spells at the moment follows this. Just there's no need to print it in the book, whereas in future there will be. So yeah,
right. Interesting.
So
let's talk about the couple other toys that Dan added here. He's got a magic mirror, he said, and an hourglass of Cronius. So what do these things do?
Yeah, so the magic mirror is essentially, it bounces the damage caused by a spell back onto the caster. So after resolving all other effects from the spell, the unit casting the spell will take a point of damage for every point of damage it causes to the unit that carries this item. So damage caused in this way doesn't cause a nerve check. So this will stack with things like Hex. This will stack with things like Martyr's Prayer. So although why you'd be casting Martyr's Prayer on an enemy unit, I do not know. But theoretically, yeah. But yeah, any damage that you cause to a enemy unit, you roll your dice. You do three points of damage to the enemy unit, and you take 3 points of damage back yourself. So it's kind of like it's kind of a nice defense against some of the crazy magic stuff that's going to be going on the table.
Okay.
The Hourglass of Acronius is, so for those that don't know, Acronius is
I like this one.
abyssal. It is essentially it's a time controlling demon type of thing, and that's me butchering the fluff, but that's the gist of it. So I figured it'd be cool if there was an item called the Hourglass of the Acronius. So what this one does is it lets you go back in time. So once per game, after rolling to hit and to damage, but before taking a nerve test or rolling attacks from any other units attacking the same unit in melee, the player may decide to discard all the damage that you've caused so far and start again with the unit. So you completely start the melee again. It's a go again. The second result stands. So I'm waiting for the day when somebody needs they need a like better than average roll. They get an average roll and they go, do you know what? I'm going to go again, and then they roll below average because that would be hilarious. But it is a interesting way to maybe mitigate some bad luck. But in doing so, you'll be risking worse luck. So yeah, again, something that's got a real element of risk reward, which is something I've tried to do with quite a lot of this stuff. And yeah, I think it's just a fun inclusion.
Awesome. All right. Thanks for walking us through all that. Now we've got Elliot. You're playing Imperial Wars, right? Do you want to walk us through your list real quick?
Yeah, so I've got a classic goodies versus baddies game. So I've got the two regiments of Iron Guard, the Defense 6 ones, with a horde of shield breakers. Usually I really like the formation of the shield breakers in the middle with the Iron Guard either side. I haven't done that deployment-wise just because of the amount of terrain that was around. But they've all got throwing mastiffs because I love throwing mastiffs. 2 little troops of sharpshooters. Hopefully, I can be picking off gargoyles, things along those lines. I've got a regiment of Berserker Brock Riders with Pathfinder who are now staring down the barrel of Scorched Earth and are not looking forward to that idea. I can't even see my list from here. Got it on here. Got to zoom in. I can't read it from there. I've got a Dwarf Lord with a Pointy Wizard's hat, which we'll get onto, which is the whole reason I took Dwarves, because I wanted to take the Pointy Wizard's hat. I've got 3 more Mastiff packs, a Steel Juggernaut, and 2 Earth Elemental Hordes, and a Stone Priest with the Channeling Gem, I believe it's called.
Okay.
And the Dwarf Lord has got Flame Scythe, which is one of the new spells.
All right. Let's talk about all that fun stuff. So you got a Pointy Wizard hat, you got something called a Flame Scythe, and you got a Jewel of Channeling. So Matt, what does all this stuff do?
Okay, so the Pointy Wizard's hat gives you +1 to your spellcaster level. So you're probably thinking, why has he done that? Well, actually, it means that his Dwarf Lord can wear a Pointy Wizard's hat, which is the number 1 reason for doing this. And the number 2 reason for doing it is that then your Dwarf Lord can buy spells. So it's also going to be useful for if you've only got like level 2s or level 1s in your army, but you want to take that extra level 2 spell and get the increased number of dice on it, then you can take this as like a 10-point tax essentially on that unit and give yourself the extra dice. So one thing that's worth pointing out here is that anything that you're seeing on the screen in like the orangey brown kind of text is stuff that can be taken by anyone in any of the magic planes. We'll come to that in just a second. That should all make sense as we go along. Anything that you're seeing is red is stuff that is only taken in the abyssal plane. So there are 5 planes of existence, or different planes of reality, and essentially there are different rules for each of the planes and different things you can take in those planes. So this game is obviously taking place in the abyssal plane, and Fire Scythe is one of the spells that you can take in the abyssal plane. So this one is a spell that is going to be really good for eliminating cheap chaff, and is going to be good at making a nice dent in those armies that like to take, hundreds of thousands of defense 3 hordes and just flood the board. So looking at like the goblins, the ratkins, the Night Stalker Scarecrow builds, things like that. So what you do with this spell is you subtract the target unit's defense value from the end value of the spell. So we can see here that the level 1, which Elliot's taken on his Lord, will be getting 12 dice. And then you'll just subtract the defense value. So against anything that's defense 5, this isn't actually that good. But against anything that's got low defense value, it's going to be quite useful, because he'll be getting 9 dice at the target. It's not got any piercing. So it's going to be really bad against sort of defense 6 stuff where you could be rolling only 6 dice but not having any piercing at all. So you're going to maybe get like 1 point of damage if you're lucky. So yeah, it's just again, it's something that has risk reward, because if you take it, then you run the chance that you run into a load of defense 5 and 6 stuff and it's worthless. But if you're an army that you think might struggle to deal with if you struggle to deal with numbers and volume of units, then this might be something that is quite useful to you. And then we've got the Jewels of Channeling magic item, or heroic artifact. So this one, we've got these. So for each of the magic planes, there is a channeling table, which represents the wizard's best attempts to control the increased levels of magical activity and use them to his advantage. So we'll come to that in a moment, but essentially what you're going to see Elliot doing is re-rolling one of his dice on that table per turn, whilst his Stone Priest is on the table at least.
Okay, great. So now we're going to swap over and check out their battlefield. You talked a little bit about there being different planes, that they're playing on the Abyss. So while I'm bringing up their battlefield, could you talk a little more about the other planes you've defined in the supplement?
Yeah, so I think this is on page 100 of the rulebook. And this was kind of like the inspiration for when Mantic came to me and said we want to do this expansion book. I started looking through the rulebook and looking for some sort of source of inspiration, and I saw this. And Michael's just corrected me that it's actually page 99. I'm just used to tapping in 100 on the PDF, I think, because the cover. But yes, thanks for that. So yes, page 99 for those who are following along at home. It's essentially, I looked at this and I thought, it'd be really interesting to have games on different planes, and it means that we can kind of self-contain the rules a little bit as well and make different rules for different locations or different planes and make different things available. So what I've done is I've written rules for each of the 4 planes that are in the middle there. So the material plane, which is Panathor as we know it, the Empyrean plane, which is kind of like heaven. It's the opposite of the Abyss, so that's kind of what that is. We all know what the Abyssal plane is, and we've got the Etheric plane as well, which is kind of spooky. And then we've got the Arcane Mantle of the Astral Plane. That is a tongue twister. So we've got those 5, and there are rules in the book for each of the 5 locations. So yeah, we're going to see the Abyssal Plane in action today. As I mentioned, that there are things that you can only take in the Abyssal Plane, and that will extend to the terrain, the scenario, and a few other bits and pieces as well. And that is likewise for all of the other locations as well. So there will be spells that you can only take in the Empyrean plane and items that you can only take in the Empyrean plane, and there will be terrain features for that and a scenario for that, and essentially replicate that across each of the planes and change things around. So there are essentially 5 different locations, all with their own unique rules.
Cool.
I say 5. The exception to that would be the Arcane Mantle of the Astral Plane. I'm having to say it again, which I've designed as a mix and match because it goes around the outside and encompasses everything. I thought it'd be cool if that became like the place where you can mix and match anything from any of the other planes for a full-on crazy experience.
Awesome. So, and you said that these guys are going to be playing on the Abyssal plane. So, yeah, talk to us about what the scenario is they're playing here and how playing in the abyssal plane affects that.
Yeah, so as I say, all of the different planes have different scenarios or different special rules that affect the scenario. And in the abyssal plane, any loot counters that you're carrying could be cursed. They could be of benefit to you. But obviously, being the abyss and being treasures of the wicked ones, who knows whether you can trust it or not. So before issuing an order to a unit carrying a loot token, roll a d6. On a 1 to 3, the unit carrying suffers a single point of damage, and on a 4 to 6, it will regain 1 point of damage. So they're playing push. So units are going to be starting off with these tokens. So it'll be interesting to see if unit gets really unlucky and suffers loads of damage in consecutive turns.
So if a unit's carrying more than one token, do they roll a d6 for each, or is it just one for any tokens?
No, not as things are written at the moment. But like we said, this is the very first time this has been played. It's not been really tested at all. So and obviously balance isn't our key concern with this. It's more about having fun. But what we're going to do is certainly take away any feedback from this and have a look at it. I think it would be pretty cool to have either multiple dice rolled if you're carrying multiple tokens, or you apply the result so you take or regain a number of damage equal to the number of tokens that you're carrying. But that was a suggestion that was made to me by you guys just before we came on this call. So for today, no, play it as written, and we'll see what comes out in the actual publication.
Okay, and is this
get rewriting it as we're playing?
And is this like other auras or effects where it does damage or heals you, but it doesn't cause nerve checks that phase?
Correct. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Good question from the YouTube comments there. And now tell me a little bit about how supplement changes the effects of the terrain on the battlefield. They're playing on the abyss, so we've got some extra stuff going on here.
Yeah, that's right. So in each of the different planes, there is, you're not in the normal setting. So obviously the terrain around you will change and be different. And in the abyss, there are lakes of hellfire or hellfire lakes. And whilst you're touching a hellfire lake, you are -1 to your waver and rout values. And then there are obelisks of damnation as well. So if you have a melee and your unit is within 6 inches of a Spire of Damnation, you gain the brutal special rule, or increase your end value of brutal up by 1. So you can really start stacking up your brutal there.
And we just clarified that does stack with multiples of those obelisks.
Yeah. So
all right. So let's take a look at the battlefield then. Elliot, where have you guys put these special pieces of terrain? Can you point them out?
So I designed the board. I designed it more for look of it than thinking of playing a game on it, and then I started deploying dwarves in the middle of it all and realised it was a terrible idea. So the left-hand side, we've got 2 of the obelisks flanking a road. Not thinking that would, of course, go together. So now there's a potential with the channeling table as well of gargoyles with brutal 3, which I'm going to have to contend with. But I think that's quite cool. I like that idea. And then on the right-hand side, there's the Hellfire Lake, I think is it, which is the -1 nerve. And then we've got two hills, which are the sort of the rocky-looking things. Height 3, a forest in the bottom middle, which I'm currently sat in.
Mm-hmm.
And then a height 6 impassable building at the top.
Okay.
Top right.
And just one obstacle over here on the
obstacles.
left. Yep. Oh, there's 2.
There's 2 there, so there's a mirrored underneath the Morlocks, and then one just to the left of the Hellfire Lake.
Okay, cool. All right, so if you could walk us through your deployments now. These are Dan's Abyssals up on the top. If we could start on the left, and Dan, you could walk us through which units you put where.
All right, starting from left to right, I've got a Succubi regiment, and then behind that, a Lower Abyssal regiment. Beside that, another Lower Abyssal regiment. Then next to that is the Molochs with the Hourglass. Behind it, a Warlock with Drain Life. Behind the first obelisk is a Gargoyle unit. And then I've got, next to that, I've got a Succubi unit with the Magic Mirror. Beside that, an Abyssal Fiend. Behind that, another Warlock with Drain Life. Beside that, another Moloch Horde. The skulls on those units are the Sacrificial Imps. Both Moloch's units have the Sacrificial Imps. Another Abyssal Fiend unit with a Gargoyle unit in front. Then an Abyssal Horseman unit with the Potion of the Caterpillar. And Seductress with the Hindering spell positioned right across from those Brocks on the other side.
All right, great. And Elliot, could you walk us
Wonder
through?
what her job's going to be all again.
All right, could you walk us through your deployment starting over here on the left?
Yeah, so starting on the left, I've got my first Flame Belcher, then with a troop of sharpshooters on the hill. Next to them, I've got a horde of shield breakers, sort of lining up against all that stuff coming down through the brutal walls, with a regiment of Brocks behind them. Not Brocks, sorry, Mastiffs behind them. Two hordes of Earth Elementals, one of them holding one of the push tokens, with the Stone Priest hiding behind them. Another Flame Belcher just to the right of those. And then I've got two regiments of Iron Guard. They're the Defense 6 ones. Both of them with another regiment of Mastiffs behind them, with some more sharpshooters. I've got a Steel Juggernaut to the right of those, just to give a bit of inspiring around there and a bit more unit strength. And then I've got more Mastiffs and Brocks that are going to spend the entire game hindered and sad because they can't kill anything.
All right, great.
My thinking there really though is that I'm going to fight over the minus nerve terrain because my nerve is generally higher than Dan's across the board. So I'm not too bothered about losing the nerve as much, and hopefully it'll be more advantageous to me.
Okay, great. So thanks for walking us through that. So now you guys are going to head back to your UB room, and we will be watching a game. You're going to go and you're going to roll for first turn, and then after you decide who gets first turn, you're going to roll on the channeling table, and you've got some special tokens there to let us know which channeling result you're applying to which unit. Is that right?
Yeah, that's right, yeah.
Okay. And the bright red dots are your loot tokens because you're playing push, right?
Loot tokens, yeah.
Okay. All right,
Yep.
cool.
We've chosen to spread them out for a change.
Yeah, right. Good call. Since we weren't sure if putting all three of them meant you were going to end up taking potentially 3 damage in a turn.
We were nervous.
It's an interesting twist on push. So thanks a lot, guys. We will be watching, and we'll see you back here when you're done playing. If you got any questions, just ping us on Messenger or wherever, and we'll pass your questions along to Matt if you get stuck. And if you could just keep us, generally in sync with how the game is going in the UB chat, so we know what turn we're on and what phase we're on. You guys are pros at this point, so have fun, and we'll see you back here after the game.
Cheers. See you soon.
Yeah, see you in a bit.
All right. So now as they get started, so let's bring up this channeling table that we've been talking about so much. So you roll some dice based on how many spellcaster levels you have, and then you pick which one of these results you want. And if you have enough dice up to 3, is that right? It's capped at 3?
Yeah, that's kind of it in a nutshell. I might as well kind of go through how I've written it in the book, which isn't something you can bring up on screen because I've got it here and you don't. But yes, essentially how this works is you add up the total number of spellcaster levels that you have on the table, and you roll that many dice on this channeling table. Once you've rolled those dice, you get to pick one of these results, and you can apply them to any unit on the table. Obviously, there's ones that specify whether you target friendly or enemy, but you are picking one of those results from what you've rolled. So this is going to encourage people to take more spellcasters in this version of the game. So then you're going to get more spells being cast. You're then going to have the items being taken. Some of the other scenarios have effects on spellcasters and how close they are to objectives or where they are on the table. So it's all going to it's going to be an accumulation of lots of little things that turn this into a kind of crazy magic game. Because what I didn't want to do was just kind of resort to, I've just rolled 6 dice at a spell and that means you're dead. because no one's going to get much out of that. So it's going to be interesting because there's going to be turns where you are going to roll 3 dice. You're going to get 2 options that you want, and you've then got to make a judgment call whether do I give this unit the buff or do I nerf the enemy unit, or do I, how do I? I've got one option. How do I use it?
Yep. And so Elliot has rolled, and he's gotten a 1, a 2, and a 4. So he's got a choice of Laughter of the Wicked Ones, Fury of Flame, or Fire of the Fourth Circle. It looks like he's going with Fire
He's
of the
also
Fourth
got
Circle.
a reroll. He's got a reroll as well. So he's just going to spit some damage out on someone. So it's D3 points of damage.
The reroll from that item to, what was it, the Jewel of Channeling, right?
Yeah. So if he didn't like any of if he didn't like 1, 2, or 4, he could have potentially re-rolled one of those to see if he gets something he does want.
Okay, and it looks like he put that on that front
damage.
gargoyle unit. So that's interesting. It's just D3 damage to any unit on the table. There's no range. There's no line of sight. It's just a little gout of abyssal fire hits the unit from somewhere.
Correct. Yep. So all of these effects, they just happen. It's one of the things of you're in this crazy other world, and things just happen. There's no doesn't require much more explanation. It just happens.
Sure. And the units with the push tokens, the units with the push tokens on Elliot's side, does he roll when he activates them, when he gives them an order, to see if they gain?
Before giving them an order, so he should be doing it now, but I guess we're going to be a little bit flexible. I might even prompt him in the chat. I'm in the UV.
I got it.
Yeah, that's Mike's job is to bother them.
Yeah, I got you.
It could heal them.
Nice, thank you. Well, we'll see what happens. So they take a point of damage. So what I've done is, so they're okay, and they're okay. So just 1 point of damage taken by the Earth Elementals carrying the Treasure of the Wicked One. And I've lost my train of thought.
Yeah, but still, one damage to a defense 6 unit at the top of the game, that can stack up after a while. If they're going to be carrying it all game.
I'm surprised you didn't put this on defense 3 units or something of
I think he's
something that's harder to damage. I don't know. If there's any rhyme or reason to do this, it's completely random, isn't it? So,
So one idea is the units that are less likely to get in combat early, obviously, are good push token targets. He doesn't have a lot of targets that are low defense and expected to sort of stick around.
No, he really doesn't. But then you could put it on the chaff, let them soak the damage, let them die, and then hope you can recapture the tokens. That's a possibility. I've seen that done before.
We're sort of assuming they're only going to take damage here, and hopefully, one hope is that you get good luck or even luck, and you take some and you heal some, and you take some and you heal some,
and it evens out over the course of a game.
Yeah, that healing, especially playing Imperial Dwarves, getting some free healing on some Def 6 stuff could be really helpful.
And that's what's interesting about it, is there is an element of really good fortune that could happen for someone where they fight and then the next 2 turns they get healed damage that the push token didn't even do. It's just it's there, just helping them out. On the other side, because you're starting with no damage and you can't heal something that isn't there, he's already wasted a couple healing rolls on undamaged units. So we'll see.
So I've tried to make this again, like with the items as well, a lot of risk reward involved in this. Just going back to channeling tables, if you don't have any spellcasters on the table, you still get to roll 1 dice. But obviously then you've got a 1 in 6 chance of getting the result you want. So highly unreliable.
So right now in the game, we have what may not look familiar to a lot of you is a big dwarf push forward. This is pretty aggressive from Elliot. It just doesn't look that way because they're slow.
Full speed ahead.
But they are basically, for a dwarf army, this is full speed ahead.
Mm-hmm.
Held a leather going forward here. Elliot has brought a variation of the Who Let the Dogs Out list. There are throwing mastiffs and some sort of light shooting all over the place on this army, which could put a hurt for that one or two rounds where they're going off.
And you're going to see here a point of damage that he did with the channeling table on the gargoyles really come into its own, because he's managed to tap a couple of extra damage onto them, which will obviously cause the nerve check, whereas the damage from the channeling table doesn't cause a nerve check.
Yep. And that's
so there we go.
Removing those gargoyles is pretty useful.
Yeah.
Which just took them off. 3 damage took them off.
I mean, of course, he has kind of got those 2 points of damage for free in some respects, because he has just rolled it on the channeling table. But he's had to get there. He's had to take 2 heroes and get to spellcast level 3. So what's Dan rolled? So Dan has rolled a 1, a 3, and a 6. So really, it's not that useful for Dan this turn. And he doesn't have any item for reroll.
Does he have
Brutal's
shooting
not
in the list, or any really?
Yeah, maybe. I think he's got quite a lot of trained life, but he's not going to get in range to use that this turn.
Right. Yeah.
And he's opted for the 3, which is the -1 nerve, I think, if I remember the table correctly.
Let me see. I think he picked. Looks like he grabbed Laughter of the Wicked Ones, which is +1 brutal. Or at least that's the.
And he's moved a 3 onto Elliot's Croc Riders. He's moved the 3 token.
Okay.
So Elliot has. Yeah, Elliot has misworded the tokens that he created in this. So, yeah, it's number 3.
Yeah. So he put it on this Berserker Brock. You do Pathfinder.
So it'd be interesting to see what he thinks he can target with. What can he target then?
Possibly nothing, and he's just doing it
to use it up.
Just to spend 1, yeah. And these, I'm assuming they are just till end of turn, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
One thing that I think is interesting, looking at some of these tables and the terrain, so many external sources of damage, that it kind of really increases the value of the Mind Fog spell, which doesn't see as much, really good use, I think, as some of the other spells. It'll be interesting to see if these types of things, if it can do a little bit more work.
Well, actually, it's interesting you point that out, because what I've tried to do with this is give each of the planes its own distinct theme, flavor, and rules. So the Abyssal plane is very much damage focused and focused on modifiers to nerve values. So looking at things like brutal, and then the free damage that you get, and the extra damage output that you can put on your units by giving them like elite or and things like that. However, the Imperium plane is the exact opposite. So it's all about the heals, and you've got that aspect of it. And then the Etheric plane is I don't want to give too much away, but it's very much inspired by Night Stalkers. So you've got some of those sorts of specials knocking about, and the material plane is very sort of balanced. It's got a bit of everything in there, so it's got a bit of heal, it's got a bit of damage. It's quite balanced channeling table. So I've tried to theme the channeling tables, the terrain, the spells, everything like that together, so that it feels like. So this feels like the Abyss. There's lots of damage going on. It's lots of psychological effects on your units and that kind of thing. So very much like a theme going on with it. So not every game in all the different planes will be exactly like this. So it gives you options as well. And the other thing is when you play in the astral plane, that is essentially a mix and match of all of the different stuff across all the other 4 planes. So if I was playing you, for example, Brinton, I might decide that I want to run, I don't know, orcs, and I want to run the channeling table from the material plane, and you might be running Basileia, and you might run the channeling table from the Imperium plane. So therefore, we've picked our own channeling tables based on what we want our armies to achieve and how we want them to play. So that would be quite interesting. But yeah, this is obviously in the abyssal plane, and so you're seeing quite a theme with the effects.
All right. Dan has moved on to shooting, and it looks like he will be rolling Drain Life, possibly, or no, probably Firebolt. He's just out of range against these Mastiffs.
See, it's interesting he didn't put the -1 nerve on those Mastiffs. Could that be a miss? Yeah. Unless he's really confident that he's going to do it. Maybe putting it on the Brock Riders was just bravado.
Yeah, maybe just wasn't thinking that far ahead.
Did Dan roll for the
tokens.
Tokens as well?
I don't think he did.
Not aware that he did.
I'll remind him.
It's new for everyone, so we'll let them off.
Yeah, so Dan is pushed forward, is trying to pin in Elliot. This is sort of a classic example where we have Elliot with a big non-maneuverable hammer trying to use that piece of impassable terrain to sort of guard his left flank and force the units to split around it that are attacking him. I expect him to sort of stall around that and use the Flame Belcher and threat of those, or at least delay of those Mastiffs in the back. Or I think are those Mastiff packs in the backfield there?
Back here?
He's got 2 sharpshooter troops.
Sharpshooter troop, yeah, sorry.
Yeah.
So what he's able to do is hopefully slow with this Flame Belcher anything that comes around that side and pick shots off of it. So we'll see.
So Elliot has rolled a 2, a 3, and a 4 for channeling this turn.
So he probably up for the damage again.
Yeah, I mean,
some of
these look really, really spicy once you get into the 3, 4, 5, 6 turns. Abyssal Vengeance for sure, sort of getting a chance to strike back.
Mini Crystal Pendant, great, it's great.
And I do like you kept randomness here, but you buying more spellcasters gives you potentially more options for what you're going to hit.
Yeah, you can pay to mitigate the randomness.
Are there any limitations on targets for these? So, like, say you roll a 5, could Dan, for instance, go ahead and put a lead onto a Cronius or something, or an Abyssal Fiend or something like that wouldn't normally be able to take upgrades?
It's literally anything. So it says just states friendly or enemy. There's no line of sight ranges or anything like that. It just happens. So it's the tactical options there are more about how you want to build your list, whether you want to go for this, whether you want to invest in getting these dice rolls on this table, or whether you're happy to just trust the dice gods to deliver for you. And then obviously you've got to make your own choices. And I think we'll see as we get later into the game those choices will probably become more difficult when we've got melees going on. It does, so far there's not been much going on. It's quite a melee focused channeling table, and so it's been obvious to take option 4 both times for Elliot because he's managed to roll it both times. But as melee goes on, I think 4 becomes less of an option maybe, and you might wish to go for a couple of the other things on there. So he hasn't been forced into a position where he has to make a decision yet.
So he's moved his Shieldbreaker Horde up within 6 inches of this tower, so that'll give them +1 brutal. And now he is rolling through for the damage from his push tokens, and his Earth Elemental Horde has taken another wound from carrying that Wicked One's treasure token.
So it's interesting, actually. Although Elliot rolled the 2 lots of damage on the channeling table, he's actually taken 2 points of damage so far. He's still got 2 points left to roll for just carrying loot tokens. So it's kind of balanced out in that regard.
He's just hoping it turns around and all the heals come late.
Right.
Yeah.
So yeah, he is
too late.
pushing forward aggressively here. I think trying to cause some hindered sort of charges out of that terrain, and also the placement of those obelisks make it kind of difficult to attack straight through there. So there's some interesting choices there, pushing those shield breakers up, putting them in your face, and making him deal with it. And then Dan is going to be probably trying to stall on his own right, or his own left, Elliot's right.
More of these kind of terrain effect auras, I think are also going to make Enthrall and Windblast a little bit more intriguing to play around with as well.
Yeah, so that's something I enjoy about the plane that we're seeing. We don't know all of the other ones, but what's interesting about it is it unlocks sort of other parts of the main rulebook game to be more useful than it was in some of the sort of more competitive tournaments. So Windblast is one, sort of chip shooting. When people are getting just damage thrown onto them randomly or nerve minuses, chip shooting sort of goes up a little more in value, for sure. So it's a chance to sort of say, and Matt, do you imagine this where like 2 players get together and they say, hey, next week we're fighting on the Abyssal Plane, bring your army at this point level, so you sort of know this stuff up front, and you're tailoring an army to sort of and making lore for it, and sort of saying this is my Basilian army that's been trapped there, and really building the army specifically to that location.
Yeah, so that's kind of the intent of it. As I say, there are 4 sort of normal planes, and then you've got the astral plane where it's a mix and match of everything. So the way I'd kind of intended it when it was going to be a campaign book, and now I'm not quite sure what structure it's going to follow in the physical publication when that comes out. But the idea initially was that you would start in the material plane and you would work your way through the Abyssal, Empyrean, and then the Etheric planes as kind of like normal games. And then the 5th battle, which takes place in the astral plane, would be a kind of final boss fight, if you like. It's the last level of the game. It's where everything's just going mental, and you've got everything from the previous 4 stages thrown at you, potentially thrown at you, depending on how you build your army. But yes, I entirely anticipate that that's how you would go about doing it. It would be a case of just saying, let's do the material plane and let's do that one first, and then you kind of work your way through them, or you can do what you want with it, really. But yes, certainly agree with your opponent which plane you're anticipating playing on first. The other thing I've tried to do with this as well is, rather than just putting in, so what we're seeing here in the early stage of this game is we're seeing a multiple number of small things start adding up. So we've got the terrain's different. We've got the channeling tables. We've got the new scenarios. We've got the new magic artifacts, and we've got the new spells. So that's like 5 different things that all will add up to make this a unique and magical experience. So what I wanted to do is kind of make it modular in that respect. So you can take as many of those things as you want. So you could decide to just play with the spells. You might not want to use the channeling tables, so you don't have to. You can kind of make it your own thing and just discuss with your opponent what you're comfortable playing with. There may be players who are newer to the game who want to do something a bit more narrative and play something a little bit more, unlike standard Kings of War. But they might not want to. Go on, sorry.
Elliot, that's okay. Elliot's focusing a lot of his shooting over here on the left side on that Moloch unit that has the hourglass and is also carrying a token. He cast a new Fireside spell on it and did a little bit of damage, and then threw Mastiffs at it. He's got it up to 7 wounds. That is, of course, the Moloch horde carrying both one of the push tokens and the special hourglass. And he's got it currently up to 7 wounds, and their nerve is on a Moloch horde going to be 16-18. And then he's moved on to the other side of the table with a little more shooting.
Yeah, he's really probably not popping that Moloch horde now. That's a huge roll, but he's stacking wounds on it. And those 2 Moloch hordes are sort of critical pieces of Dan's army when these sort of battle lines meet. There's a lot of defense 6. The succubus, while annoying, are not the sort of fear for defense 6 later into the game. So it's those fiends and those Molochs that are going to be doing the hurt.
Yeah.
So anyone I suspect
we'll see. Yeah, I suspect we'll see him using a sacrificial imp next turn on that Moloch horde with 7 damage to get to reroll some of those regens, and then send them in against something. But of course, they will be within 6 inches of possibly more than one of these obsidian obelisks that grant +1 brutal that stacks. So we could end up seeing a +2 brutal Moloch horde going into a unit here next turn.
And this is something kind of interesting too, and not that they're going to get the opportunity to do it, but with the extra rules, those obelisks, and then potentially the channeling table, that Mastiff pack is actually a pretty decent threat to those Molochs at this point. 2 brutal, potentially another nerve reduction on the Molochs from the magic table.
Yeah.
Even something that small can be pretty dangerous right now.
And that's something I sort of am really liking about the sound of this is, one, as you sort of said, it's not roll 6 dice and destroy something. It's still Kings of War, which is still a reasonably balanced. This is taking a more narrative, a little crazier take on it, but it is still within that sort of realm of strategic play. Here's interesting. So take him off.
I just saw him take up. So he focused a lot of his shooting over here on the right side on those Abyssal Horsemen, and with a big nerve roll of 9, picks them up. That's going to be pretty big because that leaves Dan very light over on that right side.
He left them in front of a lot of shooting with no inspiring. A deceptively high amount of shooting from the dwarf list.
What was it that actually did the shooting there? I didn't quite catch. Was the sharpshooters?
The sharpshooters and mastiffs.
Gotcha. Makes sense.
And
was there a fire scythe involved in that as well?
No, I think fire scythe was just over on the Moloch.
Oh, he's got a steel juggernaut. I'd completely missed the juggernaut. Yeah.
It still looked like hot shooting, right? 9.
It was pretty hot. It was still 9 wounds, right? Like that's a lot from 3.
Hot shooting, hot nerve roll.
Yeah, 9 isn't even a guarantee to pick them up. So
hot plane of existence.
Right.
All combines.
So that's a pretty big deal to lose one of your very fast, very effective hammer units on turn 2 before you even get him into combat. That's definitely going to put Dan on the back foot here.
Yep, and normally, and this is the correct flank for that exploit to happen. This is where the Brocs are. This is where we have a Mastiff Hunting Pack. We have a Steel Juggernaut, which isn't that fast, but it's at least maneuverable. This is the side that has the ability to sort of wrap around and exploit that, versus if you had a horde of shield breakers hung out there.
All right, so I think that 3-die roll there is going to be Dan rolling on the channeling table. So he's got his options between 2 and 5, and looks like he might be going for Fiendish Frenzy.
Ooh, something's coming in.
He's going with either Elite or Vicious on the Moloch Horde, which does have an artifact. I don't know which one it has, but it's gaining Elite or Vicious, so it's going in somewhere. Now, can it reach that damaged Earth Elemental Horde? Would be my question.
I believe that is the Moloch Horde that just has a Sacrificial Imp. The other one has the Hourglass.
Okay.
Looks like we're getting some regen rolls.
Yep, bitty bit of regen there, getting it back down to 6, or getting it. Let's see what it gets down to.
Dan has also forgot to roll for his
his loot tokens.
Yeah,
got it.
We'll let him
So
off. It's still like 30 in the morning over there, isn't it?
Yeah, for the record, it's 7 a.m. and Dan's probably been drinking since 5:30. So
this is good effort. I can't knock the effort.
So Molochs are, of course, speed 6. That's 3, 6, 9. So they got a 12-inch charge range. So they do have range on a lot of targets over here in the center of the table. And I believe they are currently standing on a hill. So if they come charging off of that hill, they'll get, of course, +1 Thunderous, which will help them out.
With either Elite or Vicious.
With either Elite or Vicious, 3, 6, 9, 12. And they are in range of that Earth Elemental Horde that has 2 wounds on them.
yeah, so we have a couple questions from the chat that we'll just jump in.
Yeah, go ahead.
So one, will the leveled spells be available outside of the optional rules, or is that up to the players/TOs? So as I understand it, none of this is sort of being forced into the normal game of Kings of War. It is optional additions.
Yeah, so at the moment, these are all of the new spells are. So you see Elliot running Fire Scythe, and Dan is running Scorched Earth. Both of those are spells which are only able to be taken when you're playing in the Abyssal Plane. So you're using the magic around you in the Abyssal Plane and using that to your advantage. To you're in a world of fire essentially. So you're kind of using that to your advantage. So at the moment, no, these are just available in the Abyssal Plane. However, the original intention was that we would trial all this sort of stuff in a fluffy campaign book, which was supposed to be coming out this summer, and then see what worked, and then go with Clash of Kings and see and take the bits that worked and drop the bits that didn't work, and do it that way. However, we're now in a situation, obviously, where we are in a COVID-affected world, so the release schedule is a little bit bent out of shape, shall we say, by current events, and so we don't quite have a plan yet with regards to what spells will be available. I'm sure some of them will be, but some of them, and you guys will tell when you pick up the book, which ones are there for funsies and which ones are there as something that could potentially be molded into something that could be balanced. In terms of spellcaster levels, they are already in effect in the game. It's something that's kind of working in the background. So I think I said earlier, but I'll just reiterate in case anyone's coming in a bit later. The way spellcaster levels work in terms of buying spells is if you've got a level 3 spellcaster, you will be able to buy a spell at spell values of 1, 2, or 3. But a level 1 spellcaster will only be able to buy the level 1 version of the spell. And the reason we've done that is so previously you've had cheap spellcasters. I'm looking at goblins, halflings, and other wizards that were around the 45 to 50 point range. that could buy things like Alchemist Curse and like Blood Boil and all the other stuff for what still was very cheap, because the wizard itself was very cheap, and they'd be able to do it just as well as an expensive elf wizard. Whereas now you're going to see a lower amount of dice for level 1 wizards, a slightly higher number of dice for level 2 wizards, and then for those rare level 3 wizards, you're going to see that they can buy the spell if they want to at an increased number of dice. Obviously, you're going to be paying points for that, but it gives you the option to be able to cast it better than a cheap 50-point goblin, for example.
So update on the game here. We've got not quite the charge everything round, but the charge a lot of things round. Dan definitely sensing the pressure from losing those Abyssal Horsemen. He's got a collapsing flank and had sort of two choices, which was to play defensively and reform a battle line, or send everything in and try and murder. And he has definitely gone for the send everything in and try and murder approach.
You're playing Abyssals, it's your best bet.
Well,
so it's he hit the go button, and now he has a Fiend, it looks like, charging the Earth Elementals in an attempt to just sort of cap off that side. He has Molochs charging Iron Guard, Fiend and Succubi challenging the sort of already injured token carrying Iron Guard. And then we
those
have
are the Earth Elementals.
Elementals, yeah.
Oh, those are Elementals?
Yeah, the Elementals in the middle, the Iron Guard are over to the right.
I'm confused by his over max model count Earth Elementals is tripping me up. So no, it makes sense.
Yeah.
It's fine.
So three big charges in the middle here, though. Fiend against Iron Guard with a token. The Moloch Horde that charged off the hill did pick up the token from the middle of the table as they went into the Earth Elementals, and then we have another Fiend and some Succubi with the Magic Mirror coming in against the damaged Earth Elemental Horde.
And we'll see. That's the old wall of defense 6. But it's the charges all have some damage that can stick, and then we have those poor dogs that are about to get murdered by a possibly double brutal Moloch Horde in the flank.
Let's take a look. Let's see. They are within 6 of both, so that is going to be two brutal. One from each of these pieces of terrain, which are special pieces of terrain for playing on the Abyssal Plane in this supplement.
No,
What I love about what I'm hearing from this supplement as a TO is it gives two sort of really interesting things to work on. One is it gives sort of a framework for adding bits and pieces of it to either existing or custom scenarios. So maybe not taking the whole set of stuff, but including specific spells, including maybe a channeling table, making changes or additions to a channeling table. It gives you a framework for sort of subtly changing your own tournament games. Not all of it maybe, but the little parts you want to keep to sort of spice up your specific event. And then it also gives you some great sort of custom terrain inspiration, building out certain pieces and adding them to your board, or theming certain boards after different planes in order to give different gameplay effects.
Yeah, and for me, I kind of go the other direction with this. I look at these rules and I don't think I want to put these in my tournament for the actual tournament games, but I would love to see this as like a big 3-on-3 or 4-on-4 game set somewhere. So you do that like Friday or Saturday night at your tournament, and make that like an optional. Whoever wants to have fun while they're drinking beers, and let them throw big wacky random dice on a big old extra long table with a bunch of big magic effects for fun.
Yeah. Now it looks like we have combat going or shooting.
Or no, I think that's going to be drain life on the Mastiffs from the Warlocks.
Okay.
Just so he can get some heals, some nice, more reliable heals.
Yeah, that's one of those, like, why are you drain lifing the thing you're about to absolutely murder?
Right. Right. Sometimes the point is not to damage stuff. Sometimes the point is to heal another critical unit, and so then you pick the soft target.
it's when you're looking at a bunch of defense 6. I mean,
Yeah.
I might have thrown it towards the shield breakers if you could get in range, because then that's not much better. But you know,
Yeah.
so
You got a
Yeah,
question a
you're gonna
minute
need to
ago,
get started
Michael?
with them eventually. I forget exactly. I did want to see kind of what the arcs look like on all of those units that Elliot has coming up the right flank.
Yeah.
To see what they can actually see. I think that Dan may have pushed past a lot of those arcs, which could be helpful. Oh no, that's a big one that he didn't get out of.
Yeah.
there's a couple there, because
There's a
that's
couple. As a sharpshooter, he doesn't care. Yeah, no, but definitely
mastiffs are just mastiffs, but in the flank, it's still something.
Mhm.
yeah. And if they can draw a line of sight from where they are, which I think they can, to the Moloch horde, then he could charge possibly past this fiend and hit the Moloch horde in the flank if they fail to break the earth element. Looks like we're going on to
Interestingly,
combat though.
I don't think he pushed up with the. If he did do it, I didn't see it, but I don't think he cast Scorched Earth on any of those units on the right-hand side. So I know the Brox have got, and I don't know whether he can get stuff out the way to get the Brox into a charge or whether he has arcs, but don't think he's remembered to cast that if indeed he was intending to.
And
Yeah,
Scorched Earth is one that would force the hinder regardless of Pathfinder or Strider, right?
Yep.
Mhm.
And then there's I'm not sure, but the range, is the sorceress out of range of the mastiffs right now?
So the spell's got an 18-inch range, so I would suggest that it probably does have range to it. Or are you saying range of the Mastiff's charge? Because it's definitely out of the Mastiff's charge.
Both sides.
Yeah, they only go 6, right? The Mastiffs.
It's dwarf chaff. What do you want? Beast pack?
Right. Super fast for dwarves. All right, we're rolling through combats here.
Yes.
And so far, he has not picked up either of the Earth Elemental hordes. He didn't get the one in the middle. Did do 11 wounds.
Oof.
But missed by, God, what is that? Missed by 1?
And that's huge because the Fiend doesn't have much of a prayer to pick up those Iron Guards. So if Elliot can swing those the cavalry around, possibly.
So
pick up
they're
that
either
Fiend
listening
or
to the chat or just remembered it, but they went back and threw down the hindered spell on those Brock Riders.
Yeah.
Quick,
Whoops.
quick, friendly. Hey, wait a minute! I forgot about this spell I just heard about.
Yeah, I think we've got to give him a bit of leeway, given that this is the first time anyone in the world has played this expansion. So,
quite a lot of
we'll be
new
forgiving.
mechanics.
Yep. So
Exactly.
that is going to be
so
it's going to be a big combat result there in the middle. 9 wounds on those Earth Elementals, and the Nerve roll did miss them by just 1. So if this combat had been a little closer over to those towers, so the Molochs could have picked up Brutal, would have gotten them. But since he's a little far away, he can't. And now Dan's going to have definitely going to have some counter charges coming his way.
Now the thing is, Elliot's units coming in from the flank, great, but Elliot's normal units are not the most damage heavy here. We have decent to hit on the Iron Guard, but it's 12 attacks, hitting with 8, no crush. But they're going into some, for the Earth Elementals, it's some sort of softer targets, but Earth Elementals are going to have a lot of trouble with the Succubus. So possibly just attack the Fiend.
And it looks like he's decided to put Fiendish Frenzy on his Shield Breakers over here, giving them Elite. And they, of course, are also in range of 1 tower, and after the charge, they might be in range of both, so they might also get double Brutal.
So
this is going to be a painful charge.
That turn, Elliot actually had a decision to make, because he could have gone with the D3 points of damage and put that on the on a unit that he's about to get back into melee with and try and get rid of them. Because he did roll what did he roll? Let's scroll back up and have a look. He got a 4 again, and he got a 5, which is obviously what he picked, and you got the 3 for the -1 waiver and route values. So, yeah, it was a choice of between the 4 and the 5 on that table, I think. And he's gone with the elite and vicious. So we'll see how that stacks with the brutal that he's picking up off of that obelisk, and see what happens.
I think I would have been tempted to give elite to the hindered Brox so that they could reroll some 1s on a flank charge.
Look,
The thing with that though is even if you do give them the elite, then ultimately you're still only going to be re-rolling. Your re-rolls are only any good if you can re-roll and get a 5-up. So
yeah, true.
and more importantly, as Elliot put in their chat, they killed their dogs.
Right.
This is
Now it's
now
personal.
Project Revenge.
Right.
What's interesting is he did spend resources to put a number of wounds on those Molochs, and they've regened and drained life all of them back. So that's now a fresh unit he's staring down again. Luckily, shield breakers are built to beat up fresh units with an unhindered elite brutal charge.
So Matt, I had a question.
yeah, please, Pat.
You mentioned that I guess so. Hopefully, I'm remembering this right. But when you set up a game, you pick which of the planes you want for your channeling table for your own army, right?
So that's in the astral plane. So the astral plane. Excuse me, while I just get comfortable. So if we were playing, there's 2 ways of playing through this. You can pick one of these planes and say, our game is taking place in the abyssal plane, as this one is. So both players are rolling from the abyssal plane chart because they are in the abyssal plane. But in the astral plane, which is going to be, everything goes nuts in the astral plane. And I'm not exaggerating when I say that. But yeah, it's the astral plane is almost like an expansion to this expansion. But yes, the astral plane, if I was playing you, I would get to pick one of the 4 channeling tables that's in the book, and you would get to do the same. So you can start to think about which of the channeling tables synergizes best with your army, or what's going to screw your opponent's army up, and kind of start building with that in mind.
Okay, cool. Looks like the Brox
So
did go in on that flank.
It looked like he didn't have line of sight from the Mastiffs over to the flank of those Fiends.
Yeah.
Or the flank of the Moloch. So he's just sort of shoved them out there, thrown them into the backfield, and are looking along the line, which gives a lot of options for next turn.
So while he's setting up all his charges, Matt, I was curious. At what point did the rules committee decide that magic was going to be the focus of the first campaign supplement? Is this something that you guys kind of knew when Third Ed came out, or is this something that just kind of has occurred to you guys since?
No, it's so around about the start of the year, Matt Gilbert from Mantic got in touch with me or us and said, this is what we want to do, and we want to base it around magic. And I had quite a long telephone conference with him and Rob Berman, and we kind of went through what the fluff was going to be, and he basically said, like, go away, think up some ideas, and come back to me. So I came up with the idea of using the different planes, because I really didn't want this to be the risk I ran if I just kind of said, here's all this crazy magic stuff, is that it's then part of the core game. So by breaking it down and putting it into all the different planes and saying, right, this is the stuff that you can take in when you're playing in the abyssal plane, and this is the stuff you can take when you're playing in the Imperium plane, and so on. You actually then kind of restrict it and contain it within the campaign book a little bit more. Of course, we can't stop people running tournaments as they see fit. But at least if we do it in that way, it kind of provides a bit of a steer in terms of what the intent of this book is. if that makes any sense.
Yeah.
Kind of don't know whether it did or not, but hopefully it did.
And Elliot picking up one of the succubi regiments there with shooting. That would be a fireside spell, flame belcher, and sharpshooters all focusing fire, and and he managed to pick up yet another kind of crucial unit for the Abyssals. Over here on
So
the left flank.
the Dwarf Lord with the addition of his very stylish pointy wizard's hat is a defense 6 mighty sort of spellcaster running around and flaming things.
Yeah,
Yes, essentially.
What would a dwarven pointy wizard's hat look like? I imagine it would be all metal.
No, I mean
I think it has actually modelled it onto the unit. So if you scroll in on his Dwarf Lord with the pointy wizard's hat, you can see it. As Elliot predictably picks up that monocord with the shield
big.
breakers.
That is big. So that's going to be a token that he gets to pick up.
And he was lining up for that sort of charge. He threw the dogs out in a way that would block the Moloch charge against the terrain. He moved them up very intentionally from sort of round 1 to say, you're going to have to deal with this somehow. And now we'll see Dan sort of threw the Molochs in, and we'll see what his sort of plan B with dealing with those shield breakers are.
Are the shield breakers in arc of the succubi over there right now? The ones to the right that are engaged with the earth elementals.
Oh, sorry.
No.
They are not currently.
Back up 1 inch.
That's a great
Still
position.
doesn't look like it gets it.
Actually, the 1 inch disengage if the earth elementals go into them. Do we know if those earth elementals have charged one or the other unit?
I think that was just them fighting against the Abyssal Fiend.
Okay,
And
yeah. So
there's
if they
an individual.
didn't,
Yeah, there's a Stone Priest here, which is why the Earth Elementals didn't slide over anymore.
Yep.
Hit this.
Okay. Yeah. So
there's a tricky. There's some good moves in there that I think are good highlighting. Whenever you're double charged and you don't think you'll be able to kill one of the units that hit you, there's always that danger of you engage one of them, slide over, and then the second one flanks you because you've now slid way over to fight. To prevent that, he threw up his Stone Priest there, who I don't actually know if he's in combat or not, or just standing there.
He's just holding the corner.
Yep, just standing there to prevent the slide and keep that defense 6 unit sort of locked in the middle, trying to resist the damage, which is, smart play. And another reason that having sort of individuals in your battle line, other than just standing behind them waving flags, they actually come in for very, very gameplay tactical purposes.
Ooh, and that is a 12 rolled, and then a 9 rolled for nerve checks on this Abyssal Fiend after putting a total of 12 wounds on him.
Brock's doing Brock things.
Brock's doing Brock things, even hindered, but hey, on a flank with Vicious. Against the Abyssal Fiend, which is defense 5.
Those Brocks did hit 14 times. There.
Yeah.
Wow.
And then they did what? They did 7 damage.
Did 7 wounds, yep. And that was after, I think the Iron Guard in the front even did 5, which is pretty good.
Yeah, that's fantastic all around.
So
did they roll it with the disordered and hindered and everything?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, they did really well. All right, moving on to bottom of 3. Here comes Dan's roll on the channeling table.
Let's see what he can do for cover here.
He's got his choice of Fury of Flame or Fire the Fourth Circle. His whole army's already got Fury, so Fire the Fourth Circle it is.
Some free damage on those earth elementals.
Yeah.
2, 3.
Oh, that's
So,
interesting. You can cast that on units that are in combat. Okay.
Yep.
It is looking kind of bleak here, though, for the for the home team, I guess.
I love the idea of a dwarf lord with a pointy wizard's hat leading an expedition into the abyss, and just wampa stomping some abyssals.
So this is my take, and this is something I love about these sort of. I am not always a narrative Kings of War player. I'm not going to pretend that I am, but it's mainly because I feel Kings of War is an incredible game for sort of matched competitive play, but the rules and framework wasn't always there to help support more narrative and story driven. It's been there a little in the past, but now that we're getting some more of that flavor, it sort of excites me around the idea of doing campaign days, doing a big organized play day where you do 2 battles and then a giant mega battle in the astral plane where everyone's bringing crazy stuff. And it sort of gets those things excited, because in my own head, my own lore, that wizard's hat is actually sentient, has taken over the Dwarf Lord's brain and has sent them on this attack into the abyss, which is actually the wizard hat's attempt to return home. So
that'll be maybe the big twist in the last round once they get to the astral plane or something.
Yep. So there's a lot of room for
dwarves. Jazz hands. So yeah, I think you're absolutely spot on there. I'm not Mr. Fluff Gamer either. I do play competitively, but I do appreciate that there is a lot of people out there who are not tournament regulars. I mean, just looking at the numbers, okay, Kings of War Fanatics is a Facebook group with over 10,000 members in it. But I think there's probably around about 500 competitive tournament regulars in the US and another 200 in the UK. You add in Australia and the rest of the world and rest of Europe and wherever, and you're still a long way short of that 10,000 members on that Facebook group. So I think it's really good, and this was something I thought when I wrote the rules for Siege in Clash of Kings 2019, was that it'd be really good if future supplements could contain something for players who are not so tournament focused as well, who do like these narrative or just fun-driven ways to play the game. I think it just makes the game a little bit more. It gives options for the game to be what you want it to be. And let's be honest, none of us got into fantasy wargaming because we wanted to be competitive tournament players. I think if we're honest with ourselves, we probably picked up a well-known gaming magazine back in the day, or saw the models online or in a store, liked the idea of it, and probably started running away with our own fluff ideas, like you said about the dwarfen hat there. That's probably the core of what we are in some respects, or certainly a lot of people. So I think it's good to have a balanced tournament game, because you want to be able to turn up and play games that you can take relatively seriously, or they're at least balanced so that both sides have an opportunity to win, rather than just getting completely crushed. But I also think there needs to be alternative ways to play the system. And really, I think the reason we can do this sort of thing is because the base game is balanced. It gives us a nice stable foundation to add these sorts of little extras to it. Whereas other games, and I'm not going to mention any names, but we all know the one I'm talking about, was mental to begin with. So you add crazy on top of crazy, and it just, like, how does that even work? Whereas this, I think what you're seeing is, there's some crazy magic stuff going on, but it's all lots of little things which actually accumulate and make this a very different style of game, which, like you say, can be done as a fun gaming day. And worth pointing out, actually, I don't think I've mentioned it yet, is the channeling tables. When you play 3,000 points and above, the cap on the number of dice you can roll on the channeling table is removed, so you can roll more than 3 dice. And so once you get 3,000 points, you get to pick 2 results, and for every 1,000 points you play thereafter, you get to pick another result. So you could potentially be rolling 6, 7, 8 dice on that channeling table and picking 3 of them in a 4,000 point game. So I've tried to make it scale the points values.
Nice.
3d3 damage, blowing up gargoyles every turn is my train.
Yeah.
that was going to be my question.
In a 4,000 point game, what does it matter if you really blow up an 80 point unit for free?
If they're gargoyles, it always matters.
Well, yeah, but it doesn't matter as much as a when that is what 5% of the army in 2,000 point level. It's like 1% of the army at 4,000 points. So
yeah. All right, Dan has moved on to shooting now. He's doing some drain lives on the dwarf infantry horde here, the shield breakers.
Yeah, the soft target.
Yeah, trying to see if he can heal back some wounds.
Not that soft, unfortunately.
Not that soft though. Yeah, managed to get one off with each of them and heal his Abyssal Fiend a little bit. Who's still in combat with those Earth Elementals that are now up to 6 wounds, so I think they might actually be able to get them.
So because I was talking, I missed what Dan chose on the channeling table.
He did.
Flamed them. He did
damage
the old number 4.
Yeah, to the Earth Elementals.
Some extra damage to the Earth Elementals.
Which here is very, very, very useful because it just does the damage. So you have that opportunity to just stick something on defense 6 without really earning it. You're just getting it on that channeling table, which is great for him. So
and he has cast the hindering spell from his Seductress onto the Brox again.
Those Brox are going to be permanently hindered for the rest of the.
That spell was called Scorched Earth. Is that right?
Yeah. So what Elliot really needs to do is stop that Seductress from casting.
Yeah.
Or just keep charging rears and flanks.
Or just keep charging rears and flanks and killing everything anyway.
Well, yeah, and of course, remember, a counter charge is never hindered. So at that point,
true.
Once they're in, they get into it. It's going to be less effective for Dan. I think you're probably looking at a loss of quite a bit of stuff for Elliot this turn.
Yeah, there's a possibility of those 2 units in the middle. Very high possibility of those dropping. And that's why he has set up the Brox with a sidestep and the Mastiff so far out, probably in an attempt to keep it in encirclement, even as these sort of Molochs and the Succubus and the Fiend are able to try and turn to face. So
that is 11 wounds on the Earth Elemental.
Yeah, they're gone.
That should get them, yep. So that's another token. So they've swapped some tokens back and forth. Dan is putting it on his Abyssal Fiend.
Yeah.
God, I want that fiend to either heal all of its damage off and just be fine, or take 3 damage and start getting.
Interesting. So I feel like I would have done the Moloch horde on the Earth Elementals first, so I could be certain, know which way the Molochs are going to be facing before I tried to figure out where I want to put my Fiend.
I mean, you gotta. Besides a double one, you gotta hope they already have 11 damage on them
already. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it should be pretty reliable pickup.
But it does make sense to get to know for sure what that one is doing.
Yeah. Plenty of hits. 4 damage.
Yeah, they're dead.
That should do it. Yeah.
Woo. He was flirting with it with that 4.
Yeah, those close.
All right. So now he turns to face the pain. That is going
now the interesting thing from Dan is he has that lower abyssal unit sort of stranded-ish in the, and you can say stranded, or you can say they're just going to keep plowing forward with a push token, trying to be safe. But I think they're the next ones about to get it from the shooting battery.
Yeah.
They sadly have no arc on the shield breakers, sort of regardless of how the shield breakers turn. So if the shield breakers blow up the unit in front of them and spin to face the middle, there's nothing sort of punishing that move.
Except the succubi. Succubi with potentially on the channeling table could just take out that horde on their own. I think if the shield breakers turn to face, the succubi probably get within 6 of one of the obelisks at least.
Yeah,
Ooh.
and that's friendly.
So Elliot's got the option of putting down that mini crystal pendant because he's rolled a 6 on the channeling table, unless that roll of a 6 was his D3 for the for damage on the 4. So,
but he does have the reroll from the hat, right? The wizard hat.
Yeah, so that's why
No,
I'm thinking
yeah.
that 60 he rolled it. So
It's
I
a
think
wand.
he's
It's the wand that gives him the reroll on the channeling.
The wand. Okay. Sure, and you roll doubles there, so you pick up one of the 4s, you re-roll it, you pick up another option.
Ooh, he's going for damage on the lower abyssals. He's not confident the shield breakers will get that done on their own.
I guess it doesn't hurt, but I think they have both obelisks within 6, or just the one?
The horde
One.
just has the one. Yep,
Just the one. Okay.
they're about an inch shy of the other, or half an inch shy of the other one. Just barely flirting with a torch on.
It's probably worthwhile.
He's got to win that combat
Yeah.
to have any chance of keeping the shield breakers alive. So
Mm-hmm.
Yep. And
So another
that is
thing I just wanted to sort of mention that Matt was saying earlier about making this sort of for some of the non-tournament is that I'm a tournament gamer. I know a bunch of people on here or watching are, but that doesn't mean we are only a tournament gamer. Obviously, we can be more than one thing, and we can very much enjoy 6 rounds of tough, fair, edge of the meta, spear point, tough army lists. But we can also enjoy in an afternoon of just fun, great, epic gaming moments. So it's cool that we're getting a few more options in Kings.
Yeah. The other thing as well is this kind of help build this will help build the lore a little bit as well for those who are invested in that because we're seeing here a game being played literally in the abyss. So there's going to be other settings as well, and it will bring it a bit more to life in people's minds, I hope. Just provide an option, as you say. The more things we can do with the game, the better, really. No one's forcing you to do this every time. So yeah, it's always nice to have the options.
So Matt, if there is going to be, Mace, you had mentioned that this could be a campaign book at one point. I don't know if that's still a plan for it to have a campaign element to it or not. Is there any plan or any thought to a Vanguard tie-in?
Not that I'm aware at the moment. I know Matt and Rob were on the Mantic Open Day live stream just before we started this, and they were talking about looking at ways which they could do things with, putting little bits of Vanguard stuff in Kings of War books and little bits of Kings of War stuff in Vanguard books to Matt Gilbert's phrase he used was cross-pollinate. So yeah, I think that's probably something that might be in the works, but I'm not personally involved in Vanguard. They've got their own rules committee. So yeah, they would potentially look after anything Vanguard related in that respect.
Okay.
So not one I can answer, but I know it's something. I can't answer it specifically for this book, but I know it's something that going forward and in the long run, it's something that they intend on looking at.
All right, so it looks like Elliot took a couple of damage from carrying tokens and then healed one on that far right
Yep.
unit, and now he's moving on to shooting. Once again, going after the lower abyssals over there on the far left, carrying one of the tokens.
Yep, they're the next.
4 damage. Okay, and they're on 1 already, so that puts them on 5. I can't see a source of inspiring there, so
I think there is.
we're
And they're
already
13,
in the realm.
15.
Yeah,
What
we're
is
already
the-
in the realms of doing it. Oh, he's not putting the pointy wizard's hat on the. He's going on the gargoyles with the.
Going after the gargoyles. Lower defense on gargoyles, so he'll get an extra die that way, right? That's how that spell works.
Yes.
You subtract the defense value from the total number of dice that you roll. So you start off with loads of dice, and because you're subtracting the defense value from the number of dice that you roll, actually it's pretty pointless against defense 6 stuff because you're going to get naffle dice. It's got no piercing, so yeah, you just get lots of dice against low defense stuff. And he's managed to put 2 damage on the gargoyles with that. What just hit the? Oh, I see.
I think the sharpshooters.
The-
Sharpshooter
Yeah,
is
and
on
there's
the
the-
tower.
And there's a
Is that
flame
crow?
belcher.
There's a flame belcher. There's that was some mastiffs that he just threw at it from this mastiff pack,
Huh?
and now the flame belcher.
Now those gargoyles in the bottom
Yeah, I
left, are
think-
they facing down or are they facing up toward the horde?
I believe they're
They're
facing down
facing
towards the
the-
sharpshooters.
Oh, okay.
So he's not fired the sharpshooters yet, I don't think.
I don't think he did. I think maybe he's going to come back to them at the end and decide whether to polish off the gargoyles or shoot at the lower abyssals some more. I got a Bane chant off
Well,
on his hindered
has he
drops.
got range? Has he got range and arc to the fiend in the middle with those sharpshooters?
Yeah,
He does.
that's a great target for them.
If he doesn't get rid of those
Maybe.
gargoyles, this will be the last things the sharpshooters shoot at this
Yeah.
game, probably. So, should choose wisely.
But to be honest, I think that's probably the best bet because the gargoyles, the lord with the pointy hat, can take care of those.
It's unfortunate though. It looks like they failed to wound the fiend.
No wounds, 3 hits, which is really good, but then all 2s to roll the wound. So nothing
Wow.
there. All right, nerve check on those gargoyles. And there's the 6 to waiver them.
And he
Called
called
shot.
it.
Right.
I mean, those they're not gonna get to shoot again, but those sharpshooters are, or they wouldn't have been able to shoot again if those gargoyles were coming in. But they are defense 5. Gargoyles are still gargoyles when they
Yeah.
fight.
Okay,
That
so
is a
here's
10.
a question about the channeling table. If he rolls the headstrong result, can he apply those to those gargoyles and then roll a headstrong that turn?
Yeah. Because you roll the channeling tables at the very start of the turn.
Just before you've declared or
So-
done anything?
Yeah.
Ooh,
It's the very
That's a
first
waiver.
thing that happens.
gargoyles.
Is that a waiver on that? No, that's not quite a waiver. On the
The reason I did it at the start of the turn, not in the shooting phase, was because it opened up options for me to do stuff that takes place in the
In the movement? phase?
movement phase. Yeah.
And that
Interesting.
would be a bit cinematic for gargoyles fighting on home turf to suddenly be headstrong.
Suddenly go, okay, yeah.
All right,
the
so
shield
both
breakers-
lower abyssal regiments are dead now. The ones on the far left carrying the token died to the nerve check, so now there's a token laying on the field. And as Brendan was just saying, the shield breakers have finished off the other lower abyssals and have turned to face the succubi.
Shield breakers are back, people. the
those-
dream of every dwarf player. Giant
those,
swords, hammer armed
Double hindered charge into the Moloch horde in the center. Few wounds from
He's
the
rolled a bunch of 5s. What?
Vanguard. Yeah, UB dice there.
Oof.
Oof. That's a lot of wounds on
Ow.
Molochs.
Oh,
Yep, and he gets him even with a 5. Even the 5 on the reroll still picks him up.
If you just roll 5s, hindered isn't that big a deal.
Right. That was a
It's the
lot of
best
5s,
strategy.
though.
Just
So
roll
I think
5s.
that's worth the banner.
Yeah, I mean that Dan was sort of in a bad spot to begin with, but he had a plan, and now, he's literally got 2 units in the middle back to back. Facing out.
That's a big swing scenario-wise too, because that's a lot of tokens now being held by Elliot, and 1 just laying on the ground, with nothing really for Dan to send over there to get it.
So the other thing is, if we go right back to the start and look at, was it turn 1 or 2, when Elliot took out those horsemen, just to be able to pin those, even if the Brocks don't get killed by those horsemen, I think just the ability to pin them down for a couple of turns, because it went well in the middle for Dan. It's just when that flank fell apart. So it's now got a mini crystal pillar of retribution on the fiend.
Yep. So he has gone with. I'll bring it back up real quick. During the opponent's next turn, chosen unit suffers a rout result. All units engaged will suffer D6 hits at piercing 2. And that is.
And again, this is extremely thematic. We're coming down the death throes of the Abyssal army defending its homeland. They're just going to start blowing themselves up. We have Suicide Fiend.
However, I got a feeling Elliot's just going to shoot him.
Yeah.
What did he roll? Could you bring the challenge table back up? Sorry, Mike.
Yeah, sure.
Because he got a 2, a 4, and a 6. So he opted not to use the headstrong.
Yep.
He actually decided that the bomb was more worthwhile.
Well,
I think Elliot's going to be smart here and just shoot that Abyssal Fiend off.
Yeah. So this chart is new. And I think Dan saw he rolled a 6 and could get a bomb.
And let's do it. Yeah.
And just snatched it up, regardless of the full tactical considerations that were going on.
Yeah.
Now, if those gargoyles.
I mean, this is my tournament gamer mindset shining through when actually Dan maybe is embracing the the intention of this.
Yeah, I mean, this is supposed to be kind of a playtest and also kind of a demo game, so you might as well, kick the tires, try out all the toys that you can.
Get all the brutal charges you can. So many fights have been happening right next to those obelisks. It's crazy.
Yep. And I think he did he actually healed 1 off of the fiend here in the middle for the token he's carrying. Looks like that was the 6th roll.
Yeah.
Oh, with the token, I see.
The life-giving power of the bomb.
Of the bomb, right? He's literally learned how to stop worrying and love the bomb.
Yeah, it's okay, Dan. The rolls are coming around for you. Turn 5, turn 6, you're going to be rolling hot with 1 Abyssal Sorceress.
Whole lot of drain life.
Yeah, the drain lives are going to come in hot and turn this all around.
So Matt, how is terrain setup decided? Is there a suggested way to do it with the special pieces for the different planes, or is there much on that?
I'm leaving it open to players' interpretation. Really, I'm not going to start putting charts in or doing map packs or anything like that for this.
Mm-hmm.
I would just recommend that people do what they would normally do with the map. So if you think about sort of like the Epic Dwarf map pack and things that are commonly used, I mean, I don't use Epic Dwarf map pack. I use roughly the same amount of terrain in it, but I just kind of mix up the layout. And what I would recommend is that where you've got normally 2 pieces of impassable or blocking terrain on the table, use those as the obelisks. And then if you've got any flat terrain, you can use those as the Hellfire Lakes. For example, in this one, so just kind of match up your terrain to, and just look at what is in that plane and see what you've got on the table and count it all as that's what it is. Or you can decide not to use it. As I say, it's quite modular, this book, and you can pick and choose bits and pieces obviously everything's in play here. But you might not want to use the channeling tables. You might not want to use the spells. You might want to use just the terrain or the scenario. So you can really mix and match and make it your own.
I could see that being something that, speaking about what could make its way into tournament play, I could see some of the tournaments where they really kind of go all out on the table design and the table layout, really customized terrain pieces. Maybe borrowing some of that for a scenario or two in a tournament.
Yeah, I like the idea a lot. Like I've done like all the tables in my tournament. I've themed after specific places in Panathor, so could be cool to try to use some of this. But for tournament play, I also try to keep the tables as close to the same as possible, so that the luck of the draw as to which table you end on doesn't have a huge impact on your match. But I could see maybe doing it so like if you want to do your own custom scenarios for one round, saying, and the Impassibles do the brutal thing or whatever. Like there's if you wanted to like put a narrative thread through your tournament, and you want to tie in the scenarios, you could bring some of that terrain in there. That might be pretty cool.
Mm-hmm.
So we have brutal succubus charging in.
Yeah, just barely getting that brutal. Yep. Ooh. And it's a waiver.
Hello.
Wow.
It's okay, though.
Rolled an 11 for the first nerve check, and then only a 3 for the second one.
These are Imperial Dwarves. So, come on, headstrong. I'm a dwarf player at heart. So whenever they get a chance to use that rule, I'm excited.
No, I think they decided it's not actually wavered. They were off by 1 on the waiver.
Brutal. maybe it was the brutal.
Yeah, maybe. And here we got the Abyssal Fiend on the Brox.
So you know what you have to do for your tournament, Mike, is just because you like the tables to be even, you just need to print out 20 sets of abyssal terrain, 20 sets of ethereal terrain, 20 sets of and just
have everybody swap them every round.
Yep.
Please open up terrain bucket number 4 and deploy it according to the map inside.
Look, I mean, if you want to make your players do the terrain switch themselves instead of being a good TO and swapping out every table worth of full terrain before anyone notices, then that's on you.
What's really interesting here is how much damage that Abyssal Fiend that you gave the bomb to is healed back.
Yep. Shooting might not do it. So we're Dan's getting the excuses in. We've got never played these guys before. This is the why did I pick an army I've never played before for stream? Regrets coming in now.
I see. So there's a Seductress against a Stone Priest there.
Stone Priest lives.
Yeah.
See, if the Stone Priest had been killed there, then obviously Elliot is losing dice, and he's got the Jewels of Channeling on that unit as well. So he would not only have lost dice, but he would have lost his reroll as well.
And since that's an individual, the Seductress could have overrun into this Flame Belcher and probably picked it up as well.
There is that too.
That's an interesting piece around this, in that we've talked about the channeling, we've talked about the spell levels, and in my head, that's sort of been a constant throughout the game. That like, okay, he rolls 3 dice on the channeling, gets a reroll. But if you start picking up these spellcasters, if you start targeting them, murdering them, then someone's channeling rolls, as well as other stuff, is going to start dropping significantly. So it's another interesting tactical challenge.
And it looks like Elliot did decide to put Elite on the Shieldbreaker Horde based on his channeling roll this time.
Oh my dear lord!
So it's gonna be elite Brutal Shieldbreakers versus Succubi, which
brutal
are
too.
Yeah, it may make the difference going into the ensnare.
Yeah, this is just that. I mean, the succubus are sitting here saying, okay, our defense is not really our defense. Our defense is not really our defense, and hoping that's going to save them. But from a general tactical thing, when you get near the end of the game, turn 5, turn 6, and you look at a giant investment of points, which is the Shield Breaker Horde, and you say, what did it do for me this game? And the problem with Shield Breakers is normally the answer is they blew up some chaff and then got multi-charged. And in this game, the answer is they've taken out multiple units, paid for themselves over, and it's been good use of that unit by Elliot. So commendation there.
I want to see him. I want to see him charge these gargoyles with those sharpshooters so that they can go grab that token afterwards. But I don't know if it's going to happen.
that'd be great.
Well, you put the Lord in if you want, and they got a good shot. But
Yeah, but they're not making it there walking unless they take this charge.
yeah, that's what I'm saying. You throw the Lord and the Shield Breakers in.
Well, you don't have to throw the Lord in. He can just stand back and use the scythe, and he'll get more dice against them that way.
Can that be thrown into combat?
No, yeah, because that's after he engages with the sharpshooters. He wouldn't be able to do that.
Can't do that in a combat. Okay, never mind.
But the dwarf going into the back of them in combat would make it a pretty safe pickup.
Yeah, five more attacks on already wounded
Because,
gargoyles.
He's been casting spells this whole time, but he's still a Dwarf Lord. And I think that's a fun. It didn't really come up in this game that much, but that's a fun little combo there where he's a baby of Free, but can still do all the normal Dwarf Lord things of standing in the way and just not dying.
Mm-hmm.
So he's an incredibly tough wizard.
You stick him in some terrain, and stuff might just bounce off of him without even disordering him, and then he just shoots them with fireballs.
I like the idea of the flame shooting out of his eyes because of the hat he's wearing, and a slightly singed beard.
All right, so that's it for Elliot's movement phase. Now he's going to go into shooting, where
Did he go in on the Fiend?
he did go in on the Fiend in the flank with his Iron Guard. They are hindered. And he also looks like charged the Seductress with one of the Mastiff packs. And it looks like we are going to open with a Flame Belcher on these gargoyles, which ought to take care of them.
So I'm sorry, Elliot. Your play has been wonderful. You're winning, but that Shield Breaker or that Sharpshooter charge, it was there for you.
Where's the sharpshooter charge?
Because yeah, Michael's right. They charge, they pivot to face the token, and then use their enormous movement to double move towards it. Is their shot at getting it?
Yeah. So. Looks like we've got the scythe at this Warlock, Fire Scythe or Flame Scythe for a couple of damage there. And now Sharpshooters at the same target, trying to pick up those Warlocks so they can't drain life. Shield Breaker Horde next turn, hopefully, if they can get enough damage on it. Yeah, pouring everything in, putting 5 wounds on them, and they are 11-13. Coming up empty with the Steel Juggernaut due to cover, probably. Flame Belcher did fine. So that'll put them on 12 wounds, and they are an 11-13 unit. Yeah, so this Warlock is on Snake Eyes. With, I don't think any sorts of... Oh, no, they inspire. So they're fine. You'll at least get to make him roll snakes twice here. Nine on Gargoyles is more than enough to get them with wounds. And there's not snakes twice on the Warlock. I'll pick that up. So that basically means that these shield breakers, if they can manage to get rid of the succubi in front of them, they're probably fine, right? Nothing's really going to threaten them for the rest of the game, even though they're heavily damaged.
No, I was worried about them at one stage when they were facing down quite a lot of units on that flank. But it's all worked out perfectly fine for them.
And that also leaves the succubi uninspired now that the Warlock's gone.
Yeah, but still, you know, 4-ups in combat can be fickle.
Who's up behind the fiend there? There's something. What's that?
It's the other
It's
Warlock.
another Warlock.
Yeah. So there's still something that can go.
Yeah, there's
Yeah,
So
but
next,
still.
but if he loses this fiend, the next round I have to decide like, what's your target? Do you try to take care of the Brocs that have 2 tokens on them, or you go over there and try to pick up that?
Well, the Brox will probably have 3 on him. Well, I guess he could just give that token to the Iron Guard instead.
Right.
But are they
Brox are
halfway
likely
across the
going to
board?
have 3 on them, but don't forget that. Oh, okay, so he's only away with the fiend.
Oh, well.
Oh, that's perfect.
Yeah, with Fury.
Yeah.
Oh, never mind. It has Fury.
Yeah.
So
Uh,
I was going to say, yeah, it's perfect for Dan.
I was thinking, like, that's perfect. The bomb didn't go off. everyone stand back. He's got a bomb.
They stand back, he's got a bomb, and instead they pile on him.
Oh.
Oh my goodness. All right. That's going to be 17 hits on the succubi and what, 10 damage?
They forgot the ensnare.
no.
Nope.
Yeah.
There should have been 14 hits.
Yeah, you're right. Oh, but he gave that unit elite, so that's what some of those rerolls were for. But yeah, still should have been.
But he
14
whiffed
hits.
the rerolls, so he got. Yeah,
He only got the
14
one on the
hits.
reroll, so yeah, should have been 14.
But he did plenty of damage there, even losing a few. Still probably would have gotten him. They don't have great health.
14 hits coming through on def 3, right? So they they'll probably go
Yeah, Def 3, 14, 16.
with at least one brutal. I don't know if he had both or not.
I
He
think
had
only
the benefit. Did he only have one, or were they in range of the
one.
other?
No,
Just one.
He might have had
Right.
both because he just walked him forward
Hmm.
2 inches. I think he probably had 2 brutals there.
Yeah.
So interestingly, even though Dan has lost a Warlock, he still has the. I think does Seductress have a spellcaster level? I can't remember off the top of my head. But he also has the Warlock there as well. So
She has a level 1. So he does still
yeah,
have 3
so
dice.
he's still rolling 3 dice, even though he's lost one. He's gone with a 1 on the. What's he chosen there?
Yeah, let me bring up the chart, sorry. +1 brutal.
Okay.
Given the fiend brutal, see if
Yeah.
you can pick up the Brox, I guess.
Does make sense, and of course, if he does pick up the Brox, then it's difficult to see the Warlock picking up those tokens and not getting wrecked in the process. But
Yeah. So he's going to want a big drain life here on something so they can peel back that fiend.
I imagine, and I always forget with Drain Life if he needs that line of sight to both members of the spell, but if he can get to 6 of the shield breakers, hit them with the Drain Life to heal the fiend.
don't you think he's going to be able to do that because he's not an individual? So he's got. He's nimble, so he gets 2 pivots and then 6, and then. No, I think he's better off just piling it into the Brox, making sure that they die, and healing back the healing back the fiend as best he can.
Yeah, they're both defense 4. So it's not like one is really easier or harder to hit with Drain Life. It's piercing 1, so he's wounded on 3s either way.
He probably needs like 4 though on the shield breakers to have a realistic shot at killing them. So yeah, maybe just adding to the Brock combat is better.
Yeah.
Sure.
Oof. Only one.
Mm.
Only one. Did he charge anything with his seductress? I don't think he did.
I didn't see what happened, but it doesn't look like it's engaged with anything at the moment.
Or is it casting a spell?
Oh, okay, that makes sense. He's failed with the Scorched Earth, or has he? So what he's done there is he's used his Wand of the Dam to cast the same spell twice against different units. So it failed against the Iron Guard, and it's passed versus the Mastiffs. And that does mean that he is now disordered with the Seductress next turn. So,
Next. Okay.
yeah. Well, he's disordered now, but it obviously lasts until the end of your following turn.
Right.
So he's tried to cast the same spell twice. And in all honesty, he's probably going to be disordered next turn anyway because he's going to get charged by the dogs. So
that's
good use.
There hasn't been a ton of spots to use that, but I can see some really great Empire of Dust, Forces of Nature, other sort of armies where if you can surge 2 units from the same caster in the same turn, some really, really dirty stuff you can pull off with some of those units.
And that +1 brutal that he got from the channeling reroll was just enough to allow him to pick up those Brocks.
Yep.
So that came into play.
So chalk one up to the channeling.
Yeah.
The channeling table is another kill there.
Yeah. I think it's more or less balanced out on the channeling tables.
I kind of like the thought too with that the wand that lets you cast twice.
The Wand of the Dam, yeah.
It's another one that helps out Wind Blast, because one of the big things you do to prevent a unit you don't want moving is throw a caster behind them or some small unit behind them to keep them from being able to be moved. But a mounted Wind Blast unit or something taller can just push both units back.
Mm-hmm. So I don't know if you guys ever had the pleasure of facing George Kirk, who's one of our local players. But in second edition, he was running a list with like something stupid like Wind Blast 50 with Night Stalkers.
Yes, I love it.
He'd be able to do that routinely. He'd just move up and he'd just, you've put your flag guy behind your unit to stop it being wind blasted. So he'd just push the flag guy back far enough and then do the best. What we played doubles at a tournament, and George had a unit that went round the flank of a unit, and then he pushed it back and then pushed it sideways so that it was then stuck behind their own units. So he kind of like moved it in an L shape and moved it back and then sideways to sit it behind his own horde or something. It was quite funny to watch. But yeah, having that much wind blast in the list can be funny.
So Elliot selected the number 1 result off the chart again, which he got on his reroll, which is brutal, and he's applied that to the Mastiffs that are in the rear of the Abyssal Fiend. And I'm not sure he can fit in now with the Warlocks in the way. Maybe he's planning on charging the Warlock instead. He's just gone in on
That
the
would make
fiend.
sense.
Just gone in on the fiend with
Is he-
both the Juggernaut.
50%? Oh, he's amended
Change.
his move with the Juggernaut. Or no, or has he?
There it is. Okay.
Yep.
I mean, it's only 11:13. I don't know whether he started on the hill or not. I couldn't quite tell from where I was looking.
Well,
So don't-
we know he's picking up. We know he's picking up that Abyssal Fiend, right? Like the Fiend is probably getting squashed, so he might as well throw Brutal on the dogs and get that guaranteed extra sort of wound and damage in.
Yeah.
Because if you disorder him, then
Shieldbreaker's not done yet.
not
Coming
scared. Not scared at all. And I think they actually just healed one from the loot token they were carrying around.
Only know how to go forward.
Right. Takes 1 damage on his Iron Guard here from carrying the token. It's 1 more to roll. Or not.
Sharpshooters aren't even gonna try to go for that token. They're pretty content on that hill.
Yeah, I mean, at this point, they're just styling, right? you just like we haven't moved all game, and
I
we've
see.
shot every round at valuable targets.
Yeah, so
we're
he's
just gonna stay here.
yeah, he's got a shot on the Seductress with them, so he's gonna take that instead.
You know,
You say that, and I picture them like trying to like take shots blindfolded and shoot with their rifle behind their back and stuff.
yeah. At this point, they're just like betting each other. A couple of cracked some beers.
Basically, well, they're shooting at a stealthy individual, so I guess the ones on the hill win because they did 1 wound to it.
Yeah. Now they are just showing off.
Yeah. All right, nerve check here. Seductress, she's 11-13, and that is a 10. 1 wound,
Favored.
so that is a waiver. And that's one of the annoying
Yes.
things about playing Abyssals is you have Fury, so you can always kind of charge in combat, but getting wavered to shooting, you're pretty much out of luck.
Yeah, so this is that instance where they're like, no one can make that shot, and when one sharpshooter steps forward and steadies his aim and plunks her in the butt, and
Right.
she gets a little scared. So
I'm gonna assume that was probably the most drunk sharpshooter. He just was
Yeah.
like, "Hold my beer."
Hey man, watch this.
there's no way you can make that shot. Hold my beer.
Right? Can't even see her from here. Come on.
And he says, "I can't see anything from here."
That was an
Right.
incredible shot. And he's like, I was aiming for the other wing.
Plus brutal, but only a 3 for the nerve check
Nope.
on the Warlock, so definitely not going to get it.
Sorry, not every roll is going to go for you this turn, Elliot. And so now we're the sort of last dying breaths of this massive abyssal fiend that has raised this army to repel the dwarven invaders. Is getting dragged down by a bunch of Iron Guard in their fire protective suits.
So
I
say
just
we're
like
doing-
that dwarves are on the front foot here, and that they are actually invading rather than sitting in their mountain hold, doing the stereotypical dwarf thing.
Yeah, so as a dwarf player, that's a scurrilous stereotype that we aren't attacking players. We're just slow. It takes a while. Like this invasion maybe started 2 years ago. They've been going very slowly into the abyssal plane.
It started in 2nd edition.
Yeah.
They started their march back
First,
then.
There's a lot of beer needs to get brewed. There's a lot of very small steps that need to be taken, 1 foot in front of the other. It's not their fault.
So Matt, the assuming you're doing like a progressive series of games through all of the realms, the Abyssal realm would be what, the third one? This would be kind of like the middle game of a campaign, probably.
I think it's the second one.
The second one? Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, because there's the material plane, which is Panathor-ish. And
Yeah.
then that has a giant hole into the abyss, ripped into it. You know, sitting there, a giant wound, weeping wound of the abyss. So, yeah, everyone's welcome. Come invade the abyss. It's just open for business.
And then I guess I did have another question about the supplement as a whole. I know that in previous ones, like Destiny of Kings and things like that in second, there were also sometimes new units added, new characters or things like that. Is there going to be anything like that in this one potentially?
Yes.
Okay.
Can't say too much more than that, but yes.
It's exciting enough.
Well, two things I can elaborate on, because Mantic have released the images of the models, is that new goblin. He's like a whiz, but he's got shock gauntlets, and he's doing like this sort of pose. He's going to be like a living legend. And there's a Ratkin one as well.
So I was hoping to hear.
I know there was sort of a mention about worldwide pandemic changes release schedules. But is there anything you can tell us about when players could start to expect to get their hands on this, other than just in screenshots on -28?
So nothing concrete in terms of a date, but towards the end of the year.
Okay.
And this is the sort of thing that we could expect, like a digital version of it, like a PDF that we could get at the same time, that we could order the physical book.
Wouldn't necessarily comment on that. That'd be a romantic decision to see how they want to proceed with that sort of thing. Obviously, the more ways we can get it out to people, the better, naturally. But yeah, that's their call. Not something I get involved with. And when I say end of the year, I can't be any more specific than that. Obviously, with the situation that we're all finding ourselves in at the moment, could rapidly change either way. So we don't quite know what the deal's going to be there. But all being well, end of the year. But that is fluid and can change.
Is that Elliot rolling nothing but 6 for the tokens that he's holding? Just picking up, just healing stuff left and right?
Just heals all around.
Fortune.
So the dwarves are feeling kind of right at home in the abyss at the moment.
It's that hat. It can't be trusted.
It's all the hat.
The sentient red wizard's hat that has driven this dwarf lord insane, and he has dragged his entire clan into the abyss to fight, are actually doing quite well at the moment. The wizard hat is now frustrated. They were supposed to lose this battle, and he would be returned to his abyssal master. But now the dwarves are just winning, and the hat's plans are changing as we speak.
I just love the idea of the dwarf sort of pitching this idea to the rest of the clan. Guys, we're going there. I've heard about a place where there might be some gold. Where? You see that big pit of fire over there?
Well, we don't know when in the timeline this battle takes place, so this could be a very ancient battle, and these could be like the ancestors of the abyssal dwarves, and this could be their first foray into the abyss, and they could decide that they like it and they want to stay.
It all started with a wizard's hat.
Right. It all started with a wizard's hat.
Or this idea that we're invading, and it's like, okay, what are we invading? Oh, it's just a little further. It's just a little further. just over this mountain, just down this hole, just through these obelisks of brutality, and they just keep going because they're dwarves and they don't give up.
Have we found the gold yet? No. All right, a little further.
So Elliot's not pulling any punches at this point. He's going for the full
The
paddle.
full tabling.
Beer and pretzels, maybe, but
Beer
still
and pretzels
going
taste
for the
so much sweeter, don't they, after tabling your opponent? So, yes, I guess that's what Elliot's going for.
And that will do it.
Bravo, bravo.
Yeah, well done there. So this was fun. They will be back here in just a minute to give us their impressions of how the game went.
how many tokens made it over the center line? I know he owns them all. That's fun, but just interested to know.
Possibly none of them.
It's in true dwarf style.
Can I drag these?
None of those tokens might be over the center line.
Probably want to flip it around.
Yeah, I couldn't. There we go.
So none of the gold was over the center line. So actually, the voices of the hat and the dwarf king telling his army just a little bit further forward. We saw the point where they needed to go no further forward.
I know at that
That's
point,
the-
I'm pretty sure that Elliot had bloodlust and just wanted to finish me off.
Well, maybe the dwarf lord's hat was also speaking to the abyss and said, "Look, just don't make these guys walk any further. You bring them the tokens."
All right. Well, thanks guys for letting us look over your shoulders while you play that fun demo game. That was fun. There was some cool stuff going on there. Usually we do a little tactical wrap up and analysis.
I brought a bit.
Yeah, you brought a bit much shooting, a little more shooting than you thought. Yeah, we can skip like the tactical analysis and let's just focus on like the fun new stuff and how it came into play during the game and just like your general impressions of the rules and what it was like playing with them. So Dan, why don't you give us your general impression on like how the supplemental rules go?
Well, I would have really loved to use the hourglass, but that unit got picked up pretty quick. So didn't even get a chance to use it. I liked actually the flavor of it. Some of them are a little bit more useful than others, so I think there's probably going to be some tweaks there anyways. So, but yeah, I actually really enjoyed it. Having extra brutal a couple times was fun. I threw the bomb on my fiend when I thought he was going to die. He didn't end up dying, so it was cool. It was really flavorful. I really enjoyed it. Even the terrain pieces, like the extra brutal for the obelisks, was cool. And it was really kind of just neat and refreshing to kind of play the game differently. The tweaks actually were big enough that it really changed the dynamics of some of the things that happened. So it was fun.
Cool. And Elliot, what are your general impressions?
I really enjoyed it. I think it's more than enough that it changes the game quite considerably, but it's nothing silly at any point. Things like the channeling table is a really nice extra. I was amazed how powerful the re-rolling the dice was, just for getting that one extra little bit that you needed here and there. I really enjoyed that. And yeah, I like things like the brutal stacking with the obelisks. Getting to the point where you've got +2 and +3 brutal is just quite funny, really, for those sort of games. No, it was good fun. I really enjoyed it. I brought quite a bit of shooting, apparently.
We very much enjoyed the saga of the Wizard's Hat. Here Dwarf Lord running around helping pick up units
there was a few times where it would have been better to charge. No, he has a hat. He will use the hat.
It's all about the hat.
Yeah.
Cool. Do we have any other questions for these guys? I can't remember if anything came up during the game that we wanted to ask them, or any questions that came across the live stream comments.
I mean, Elliot, beer and pretzels put aside, went for the throat on some stuff. Dan was set very far back from losing that cavalry unit on his left flank early. That sort of opened everything up. And I mean, from my side, for pushing the pace of the game, that was good. It sort of hit the go button on everything, but it felt like a big loss for you, Dan, of that unit especially.
It was huge, and actually we checked it because it was really interesting. And my fiend was just a sliver off of being inspiring for that unit. So that was the big difference maker there, because it was otherwise that's what inspiring's for, is for those big nerve spikes like that. And not to mention, he did do 9 wounds on that turn. That was pretty incredible. Shooting
it
that
was pretty above average.
It definitely changed the dynamic of that game a lot.
Elliot's shooting was even without an obelisk nearby brutal. It was not friendly.
No. Well, the dwarves, they're on expedition to the abyss. They've got to be on the game.
Sure. All right. Anything else? Any other thoughts or questions for these guys, or shall we wrap up?
I think it's just worth saying I really enjoyed it. I think
I'm really excited to see what the other planes do actually as well too, because I really enjoyed that, and having a few different planes to play on to change up the dynamics of the game, I think is going to make things really interesting.
Yeah, and so I was mentioning on stream that in larger games you get the cap of 3 dice on the table, and that cap gets removed when you go over 3,000 points, and as the game sizes increase, so do the number of options you get to pick from those dice rolls, so you're not limited to one. So that could be quite interesting. And also in the astral plane, which is like the end game of the campaign, it is mix and match. So you could pick, you may have picked one of the planes, Dan, and Elliot may have picked another, and you would have different planes, different channeling tables each to roll on to keep things interesting. So yeah, there's a lot of different things you can do, and we have just sort of scratched the surface of it today. There are a bunch more things in the book, so yeah, I'm hoping that everyone else feels the same way you do, and really enjoys it.
Great. Do you have a question, Mark?
I did want to ask the players just about using that using the channeling table, if you felt like there were any that you were particularly hoping for throughout the game, or did it really just kind of matter what the situation was, or were you kind of just making those decisions as you saw the results of your channeling rolls?
So I know Matt kind of discussed it yesterday, whether or not D3 damage was too much. I think actually, in retrospect, after playing the game, I think the number 4 when it came up was almost an automatic. So I don't know if it's better as just like 1 point of damage. I don't know, but the D3 ends up being pretty big, and yeah. So when 4 came up, if 4s came up, it was almost always picked. Is really what it amounts to. There wasn't really much that was better.
Unless you can take Brutal Dogs.
Brutal Dogs was just fun.
I don't know, right? but Brutal Dogs is always a better option.
Yeah.
There were a couple of times, and 4 came up quite a lot, which I wasn't expecting one result to come up quite so often. I think Elliot managed to roll a 4 every single time.
Yes.
There is only a 50% chance of that happening. Statistically, six options, and you roll 3 dice, and Elliot managed to get a 4 every single time. So maybe this was like a situation where, it just happened that the dice rolls favoured that.
True.
But yeah, certainly
I didn't get many 4s. He got quite a few.
Yeah,
I think there were a lot of 2s rolled too.
Yeah. I noticed that, Dan, you were rolling quite a lot of doubles, so you'd get like 2 2s and a 5, which means you've only actually got 2 options to pick from. But I thought there were a couple of turns where I was looking at it, and I think Elliot had rolled a number of different. He'd rolled like 3 unique outcomes on the table, and it was like, well, which one do you pick? Because there were a couple of turns where there was a decision to be made there, which was nice to see.
Yeah, I think it fell in my favour, I think, quite a lot, because when I had like key combats, there was a couple of times where I put elite on the shield breakers, and it's like, well, that's helpful, and it's I really like it. I think it's just enough to make it interesting without thinking that you can lose the game purely on the table. But it is a really nice little addition.
Yeah, it
I
was.
think what I was going to say is I'm very much kind of a tournament player normally. I think I'm 95% tournament player, but I'm still really excited to get my hands on this. I think it appeals to my level of fun games, but there's just enough tweaks in it that it isn't. There's nothing silly. There's nothing that's going to ruin my game. But we were laughing all the way through it. It was good fun.
Oh yeah,
You
we
know,
had a
and
great
brutal
time.
dogs.
And I think
Yeah.
that's an important point that was mentioned on the stream and mentioned here is that watching that it was Kings of War. It was the game we all sort of know and love, with some fun extras added that bring a new dimension. So it was not crazy world where none of your tactics matter and all that matters is what you roll on this table. It was what you roll on this table enhances and changes the tactics that you can employ. So.
Yeah, and I'm definitely looking forward to like putting together a little tour of the Plains campaign, play with my clubmates or people at my local gaming store. I think that'll be a lot of fun. Yeah, so this was great. It's good fun. Thanks, Dan and Elliot, for letting us look over your shoulders while you try out some experimental rules. That was a good fun game, and I think you guys enjoyed it.
I apologize for the dwarf gun line. I didn't realize it was a gun line. It got to about turn 3, and I went, I got quite a lot of shooting here.
You do have quite a lot of shooting.
Well, you went as far forward as a dwarf army basically can, which is just to the middle line, just short of the middle line.
Yeah.
So.
I'd also like to thank Michael Piercy and Britton Williams for hanging out and commentating on the game with me, and an extra special big thanks to Matt James from the Rules Committee for giving us early access to these rules so that we could test them out and play them. I hope everybody watching from home really enjoyed it, and I hope you've enjoyed the rest of Mantic's Virtual Open Day. Once again, my name is Mike Atkins. You've been watching Dash 28 Live. Feel free to subscribe to us. We do regular live Kings of War battle reports. And also check out the website dash28.org for more articles on a wide variety of Kings of War specific topics. Until next time, everybody stay safe out there, and we'll see you next time on Dash 28 Live.